Football season is almost here and the anticipation is building. Teams are getting ready and so are fans because millions of fantasy football drafts will be taking place over the next couple of weeks, including right here at Arrowhead Addict, where we will soon be launching our members only league. So check the information out about that in the description. We've got ESPN insider Field Yates here joining us to give us expert insights, draft strategies, and even an opportunity to compete against him in a private league. This sounds really exciting. Field, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing great. Yeah, good to be on with you today. Appreciate that very much.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into it. It's fantasy season. It's the best time of year. Everybody is ramping up, starting to do their research, listening to your podcast. What are some storylines that you're following right now as the season gets underway?
I think the biggest one every year is players being taken at the top for fantasy and what we can expect out of them. And in the case of a lot of the players, they are known quantities, right? Jamar Chase, Bijan Robinson. I like to focus my attention on rookies, though, because we haven't seen them yet. And while it's easy to project what their role will be based off where they were taken, sometimes training camp can help tip us off even more. And Ashton Genty, by all accounts, has been everything the Raiders would hope for and more. On top of that, Amarian Hampton, the Chargers' first-round pick, feels like he's trending up and up and up in the right direction. A guy who, 22nd overall, he is a very big, powerful back and a very powerful running scheme. So it's tracking guys like that, what kind of mark they are making, because that can influence how high they go in drafts. And then, of course, injuries. We are constantly monitoring injuries and what it might mean for players. Najee Harris, the longer he's out, the more likely it is that Hampton just takes on that starting role and never gives it back in Los Angeles. Maybe Matthew Stafford. The longer he is out, the more worried you might get about the outlook for Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. Things of that nature definitely influence how we're going to get ready for our drafts in the next couple of weeks here.
Now, I always find it can be a little bit of a risk taking rookies in my yearly fantasy drafts. You kind of never know exactly how they're going to play out. Are there some guys that are like, you think are really good values later in drafts that maybe as the year goes on will surge in their playing time?
Yeah, I don't know if the surge is going to happen later in the year. It might be already happening, but it seems like Travion Henderson for the Patriots has already taken the mantle as the team's clear-cut best running back. Bucky Irving last year took some time to get there for Tampa, but eventually became that guy. There are some shades of that situation in New England where I think Henderson's a better player than Ramondre Stevenson, straight up, flat out. But Stevenson is sort of the incumbent, the veteran, who's got the big contract. Maybe there's some deference owed there. But with the new sheriff in town being Mike Vrabel, it feels like maybe perhaps the more likely outcome is that Henderson takes over sooner rather than later. And for a team that was dead last in the NFL in explosive plays last season, big opportunity for growth here for that Patriots offense. But they're going to need guys like Travion Henderson to do their part. And he is a very explosive player.
Now, we cover the Chiefs here at Arrowhead Addict, and it's always fun to have players from your favorite team on your fantasy team. Are there any Chiefs players that you think, who's the best add to your fantasy roster this season from the Chiefs?
The best value is Isaiah Pacheco, and you could tell me I'm crazy. I mean, I have no idea what's going on at training camp right now, but it doesn't sound like Isaiah Pacheco is being challenged to the point that we expect this to be like a 40-40-20 timeshare between he and maybe Kareem Hunt, maybe Brashard Smith. I definitely think that Hunt will have something of a role, and Brashard Smith could have something of a role, but Pacheco at this time last year was going as a top 15 player in drafts, and you're sitting there saying to yourself a year later, I know he didn't look great coming off the injury last season. That being said, the guy is so talented, he runs so hard, and this team, they want to be explosive on offense. Well, A, he's way more explosive than Kareem Hunt, and B, in order to have explosive plays in the passing game, you do have to have some semblance of a running game. So Isaiah Pacheco would be my favorite value amongst Chiefs players.
I agree with you. I think people forget he was really in that bell cow status at the beginning of the year. Last year was getting pretty much all the work before the injury happened. Yeah. They bring in Kareem Hunt. He wasn't right, but I think Pacheco's a great value. I'd look out for Xavier Worthy too. He really came on in the second half of the season. And I think maybe some people in fantasy drafts that aren't Chiefs fans might not realize that he could have season-long impact this year where maybe he didn't so much last year.
Yeah, and Rashee Rice's potential suspension looms large there. If Rice is on the field, it probably means a lower target share for everybody else because Rashee Rice was just exceptional on the field in the first 3 games prior to that week 4 major knee injury that happened on the first drive, I think it was. So there's a big opportunity for Xavier Worthy while Rashee Rice is out, but it's not limited. If Rashee Rice is out, let me correct myself there. But it's not limited to only when Rashee Rice is not on the field. Worthy, I think, earned some real trust within that organization last year with how he performed during the second half of the season.
No, I mean, aside from Worthy, what are some other players that you think are poised for a breakout this season? And, there's some guys you think we should shy away from.
Yeah, a common theme is guys that were part of the 2024 draft class as breakout candidates. So it's Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze from the Bears. They're going to get the Ben Johnson bump, right? A guy who is inarguably one of the best play callers in the NFL and did so much for Jared Goff. He can have eventually a comparable impact on Caleb Williams. Drake May in that draft class, who very, very nimble running quarterback, and being able to run as a quarterback is so important. But the most obvious one to me would be Marvin Harrison Jr. if he is utilized enough. The Cardinals, I thought, should have been more intent on making him the focal point of their wide receiver group last year, and there were times where that wasn't the case, which is amazing to think when you're the 4th overall pick. On the other side of it, Breece Hall makes me a little bit nervous for the Jets, only because he's really talented, but the team is talking about getting 3 running backs involved this year, which is fine and probably good for their offense, not good for fantasy football.
Yeah. What about your strategy this year as you head into drafts? So those of us who've been playing fantasy football for over a decade now feel like we've seen it all, right? You got to get 2 running backs. Then it was all about wide receivers. And it was hero RB, the running back dead zone. We have all of these. Yeah, we're always trying to zig when the others zag to find that little bit of an edge in our drafts. So, I mean, do you believe in taking a running back with your first pick, or are you going another position this year?
I would say all things being equal, and as you know, because you've been playing for more than a decade, it's rare that all things are equal, but I am, when I have the chance to lean towards running back or wide receiver, I'm leaning towards running back. Did you ever watch that show on Netflix of the woman who organized people's houses? And one of the things that she would say when someone was going through their closet is they'd be looking through, 28 t-shirts, and she'd say, does this t-shirt bring you joy? And if it didn't, if the answer was no, you toss the t-shirt out. Go to my running back rankings when you have a chance. And once you get to the number where the player stops to bring you joy, right? And it might be like 23, 24. You might do the same exercise for the wide receivers in my rankings and get down to like 42. And you're like, I kind of like this guy still, So there's just so much depth at wide receiver relative to running back that all things being equal, I'm taking a running back if I can early.
Before we let you go, I have just one quick story to tell you. My wife, we've been together for well over a decade. I got her into fantasy football. She wasn't a big sports fan early in our career, and she had the ESPN app. We play on ESPN. And one day we were sitting there on the couch, kickoff's about to happen. She turns to me and she says, "Hey, Patrick, should I start Field Yates in my flex spot?" And I stared at her and I said, I mean, I don't know if he's available. Is he on the wire? And she was completely confused. She had gotten the notification on her phone and she didn't know who you were. Amazing. And it said, Field Yates, like sleepers to start or something like that. And she thought it meant that's the player she should be starting. So she asked about it. Yeah. So to this day, I rib her a little bit. Amazing. She's won the league more times than me, by the way. She's fantastic fantasy football player. And it's probably because once she learned who you were and ESPN's fantasy coverage, she boned up.
That's very cool for you to say. And it's a hilarious story as well. So I love that.
Great story. Listen, tell us how audiences can compete against you in a fantasy football league this year. And what are the awesome prizes they can get?
Yeah, really cool thing going on here. So somebody's going to have an opportunity to win. And if they win, what they get to do is bring along 8 friends to play in a fantasy football league against me. So a 10-team league. We're going to have a lot of fun this season. All brought to you by Red Baron Pizza, who, by the way, dropping some new stuffed crust pizza very soon. Pumped up about that. So go to redbaron.com/takethefield. When you do so, enter. It's free. It's easy. You win, you get the opportunity to come at me and have a lot of fun this upcoming season with some cash prizes involved for those that can finish ahead of me during the course of this season.
That's a really cool opportunity. And I have to tell you, stuffed crust pizza, brings me joy, Field. So I will be checking that out, as does fantasy football. And often my wife may finally get a chance to maybe not get you in her lineup, but compete against you. Field's teaming up with Red Baron to share how one lucky group of friends can score the chance to join a private league with him for a full season of competition, camaraderie, and good-natured smack talk. Make sure you check it out. Field, thank you so much for joining us today.